America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. I'm Hugh Hewitt, live in Studio West. Byron York joins me from the Washington Examiner, Fox News contributor extraordinaire, friend of the program, who I hope will be traveling with me to the afternoons at a regular date and time to be established. Byron, you going to migrate with us to the afternoons?
I am planning on taking part in the Great Migration, yes.
Isn't it a great thing to actually not have to get up? I'm not sure that you get up early to do the Hugh Hewitt Show, but I appreciate that you have been here year in and year out for the last 8 years. Byron, I want to turn my scorn on Juan Merchan. I read Andy McCarthy extensively, Greg Jarrett, John, the law professor from GW. I just think they're all saying the same thing, which is an out-of-control rogue judge. Is that understood widely inside of D.C.?
Well, I wrote the same thing yesterday as well, and talked to John Yoo, not in D.C., a Berkeley professor. And the answer is yes. And the incredible thing about this is, obviously, Trump asked for Merchan to throw this thing out. And Trump's case was really very simple, which is the defendant has just been elected president of the United States. This is over. And Merchan refuses to accept that. And so the press has made a big deal of Merchan saying, oh, well, it's not my inclination to put Trump in jail. I'm going to just do something called unconditional discharge, which is kind of just forget about the case. There'll be no actual punishment, but Trump will still be an official convicted felon. The fact is, there's no punishment that Merchan could actually enforce, right? I mean, what's he going to do? Is he going to send the NYPD to get Trump and bring him to jail? I mean, there's no punishment that he could enforce. This case is over.
It is he could. I thought he would find the president-elect. That's what I think he'll do. Is he'll find the president-elect, and then he'll hope that it goes away. But Todd Blanche is seeking an appeal before the Appellate Division today.
Yeah.
If that fails, I think he'll go over to federal court. It is my genuine hope that someone in the judiciary at any level steps up to stop the rogue judge, because I think it does damage to the idea of fair due process. But I'm a Trump supporter. I didn't talk to him about it yesterday. I didn't want to hurt his chances with anyone. But what do you think? Do you think a normal judge will show up here or a panel of judges and say, whoa, Juan, you're way over your skis?
You know, we haven't seen full appellate review of anything, really, in this case or in any of the other Trump cases. Obviously, the closest, I guess, is that the Fani Willis misconduct stuff has gotten up to appeals courts, and basically Willis has been taken off the case down in Georgia. But we haven't seen any real review. They haven't fully reviewed that enormous financial damages assessment on Trump in the big lawsuit in New York, the one put on by the state. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen full review of the Eugene Carroll case. Obviously, we haven't even had sentencing in this case. So all the stuff about winning on appeal, well, we just haven't had these appeals. And one thing that does come, you're the lawyer here, but I think one thing that comes from sentencing in this Merchan case is that Trump can formally begin his appeals.
Well, I would prefer it should not. He should not have judgment entered against him because he didn't break any law and no law was ever articulated. I am curious, though, Byron, when he gets into office, I hope he doesn't go after the people that tormented him for years. They actually got him elected. Jack Smith, Fani Willis, Juan Merchan, Alvin Bragg. Do you agree with me? They got him elected?
Yeah, this was the most amazing thing, I think, of the whole political season, which is looking at political conventional wisdom. You are running for office. Your opponent is indicted, and it hurts you and helps him. That made no sense in terms of conventional political wisdom, and yet that is what happened. And, by the way, this sentencing is going to do the same thing, except maybe even more so because Trump is actually the president-elect. just 10 days away from taking office.
It makes me furious. And I'm not MAGA, I'm GOPE, but it makes me furious because I teach law and I try and teach people how to be good professional lawyers, and it doesn't involve show trials. Let me talk to you a little bit, Byron, about what President-elect Trump told me yesterday. He thinks the media can be turned around. I said, I think it's bleeding out. Legacy media, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post. I think it's bleeding out. He said, that's tough, but maybe they have to fire everyone and start over. What do you think is going to happen? Because when you let Sonny Hostin say stupid stuff and the show comes back the next day, or your coverage of January 6th is way over the top, I don't know that they know how to change, Byron.
Yeah, that's a huge question here, which is, I think we can all say that after the election, I predicted, I thought that there would just be this huge uproar from the, quote, resistance, and they would do everything in their power to try to keep Trump from taking office. And I think clearly it has been much more quiet than that. It just really hasn't happened. And I think some people are thinking, well, it's too quiet at the moment. We don't, they're going to come after Trump. We just don't know exactly how. But the fact is, the reaction amongst resistance forces in the press and elsewhere has been much more muted than we thought it would have been. And I think yesterday Glenn Greenwald tweeted, is anyone in Washington acting as if an actual Hitler is about to take office and establish a fascist regime? I mean, is anybody in Washington acting that way?
Of course not. No. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
Wonder whether they meant it all along.
They never meant it. Nancy Pelosi tearing up the speech behind him. It's all been bad high school theater for 6 years, 8 years now. We have been treated to over-the-top exclamations about Trump. 9 years. I guess we're 9 years since 2015.
9 years.
And I don't think it's going to stop. And I am curious. There's going to be a state funeral for Jimmy Carter in town this week. It's probably the least emotional moment because he's so old. People don't remember him. But do you think that we'll get Clinton, W., Obama, Biden, and Trump in the room together?
Yes, I think you will. And I think that's an extraordinary thing because it'll be the first thing in my memory that includes former presidents and has Trump in the group as well. The presidential club, as it were. You see these pictures usually at funerals or some very special event where former presidents are all in the same place. So I think it'll actually. I was interested when Trump announced that he would attend the funeral because that did show him joining this group, not only being allowed to join the group, but actually choosing to join the group himself.
Yes, and I think it's good, and I think it sends a message to Juan Merchan and everyone else involved in this fiasco up in New York that these guys are presidents, and you're an acting trial judge in New York City, which is corrupt and bankrupt. The juxtaposition is going to be remarkable. Yesterday, the president and I also talked about the archivist. Now, the archivist who's in place is not the archivist who put the dogs on Trump. That's David Ferriero. I've met David Ferriero. I like David Ferriero. He was rather meek, but it's clearly TDS at work when he went after Trump much sooner than anyone would go after a president. Do you think Trump will clean house at NARA as well as at the FBI?
Can you imagine a candidate running on the platform of cleaning house at the National Archives?
Yeah.
It seems crazy, but we have had a couple of examples, and the most recent one being these pictures of Joe Biden
yes.
Meeting with his son's Chinese business benefactors, doing exactly what Joe Biden had sworn that he had not done. And we find out the National Archives has been sitting on these photos for a long time and just, hey, right now, right before Biden's about to leave office, here they are. My goodness, they've been there all along. So I clearly that's politicized the running of the National Archives, and they do need to change from that.
And so they also have to look ahead, and we got to go into a break here, Byron. They got to look ahead to the Trump Presidential Library. And the bottom line is, I've done presidential library stuff since 1989. They are a bunch of lefties, nice lefties, and they will do everything they can to destroy a Trump presidential library. And so he's got to put someone in charge who's going to turn it upside down and turn it over. I'm going to go into the break and talk to Byron about one big, beautiful bill versus two, and we'll put that over at YouTube. Don't go anywhere, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Byron, I also spoke yesterday to President Trump about the Navy and John Phelan. I was a little bit surprised by this election because he's a businessman, but do you think he can deliver what Trump was talking about, a massive upscaling of our shipbuilding effort?
Well, Congress is a part of this as well. So it depends in part on whether Trump has supporters in Congress who are pushing the Navy, as well as Trump from the White House pushing the Navy to do this and pushing the Pentagon to do this. That answer, I just don't know, because I think the shape of how Trump is going to get his legislative agenda is still kind of inchoate at the moment. That's not a big surprise. We're still almost 2 weeks out from him even taking office, but it's just hard to say right now.
You see, that leads me to the one big, beautiful bill versus two.
Yeah.
If they were going to do two, I was told by Majority Leader Thune, the first one would be the border, and it would be defense buildup and energy deregulation for production purposes. And I hope they throw in a explicit repeal of the Biden ban, which Trump said he would unban on day one. But if they go with one bill, they're going to have to jam the spending for the Navy into it. Might be easier if they did two bills to get the Navy spending and the defense buildup in the first one. Am I making that up, or do you think I'm right about that?
Well, I think that Trump's preference for one big beautiful bill is based on his own experience, because I think when he came into the White House in 2017, obviously he'd never worked with Congress before. There were Republicans in the congressional leadership who did not want to enact his agenda. And he said, oh, well, let's wait a while to do this, or let's wait to do that. Yeah, we do this right now, then we'll wait later. And I think Trump thinks he's got one chance to pass something. And the idea of, oh, let's pass this right now, and then we'll pass this later, is something that he's skeptical of, and he should be skeptical of it. So I realize the one big beautiful bill is huge, and it is more complex, and it takes a little longer to do. But it seems to me that if you want to get something passed, you do it now, and you don't say, oh, well, we're going to pass A, and then in 6 months we'll pass B, because you just don't know if that's going to happen.
And that, I'm going back to Jim Jeffords, which Byron will remember, and not many other people will. Things happen. Jim Jeffords changes parties. Events happen. Terrorist attacks happen. All sorts of things happen. And you can't be assured of getting to part two. But if you had a big, comfortable majority, you might do two reconciliations. I'm hoping they're going for one, but I don't know that anyone's really decided that yet, Byron. What's your report?
No, there seems to be some difference. I mean, it sounds to me like John Thune, the majority leader in the Senate, would prefer two. But here again, I think Trump thinks what he thinks for a good reason. As far as the House is concerned, I was stunned that they were able to get the speaker thing done on one ballot with literally a one-vote margin. I went back and looked in 2021, which was January, which was Nancy Pelosi's last election as Speaker. And there was all this talk about what a genius she was getting her troops in line with a very thin majority. She had a 5-vote majority. She lost. She lost 5 Democrats. 2 of them voted for somebody else. 3 of them didn't vote at all, but she had a 6-vote majority. And she got it. And there was this praise for her as being a master tactician, getting something through the House, getting her own election through the House with such a small margin. Mike Johnson with Trump did it with one vote. Now, can they do that with big legislation? There will be some Democrats who probably come over.
That's why I want them to put Dreamers in it. I think Dreamers deserve to stay, but if you put Dreamers in it, I don't know how they vote against it. Byron York, thank you, my friend. Talk to you again next week in the New Times Fan. Find him at Byron York on X.
Thank you, Hugh.